And it's my honor to welcome all of you here today. I'm Sarah Jane Steen, president of Plymouth State University and one of the partners in creating the Enterprise Center at Plymouth. And it's my honor to welcome also Governor Hassan to have a conversation about something that's incredibly important to all of us. Now, in her State of the State message, she talked about the importance of innovation, helping the economy, small businesses, creating jobs, and what that meant. And last month created the Live Free and Start Advisory Council that brings together a lot of partners doing what we're also doing in bringing together partners to work on behalf of small businesses, to bring education, public, private, and government together. So today is a wonderful day for all of us to welcome the governor and to talk about the kinds of issues that are important to all of us in high-tech jobs. One of the things the governor has talked about is Robert Frost's comments about the best way out is always through. And Robert Frost taught here in 1911 and 1912. And I'd like to think that Robert Frost would be smiling that we're getting people together to say, the best way out is always through, and going through means bringing people together for great discussions. Governor, we are so honored to have you here and to have you lead this discussion.
Well, thank you so much, President Steen. I hope Robert Frost is smiling indeed. I don't think that today's discussion and what we're all focused on in terms of building a great ecosystem for innovative businesses and in particular for startups would surprise Robert Frost because the people of this state have been people who engage with each other and solve problems all the time. So I want to take a minute just to thank President Steen and the Enterprise Center here at Plymouth. I want to thank the university and the Grafton County Economic Development Council for everything you all have done to put this Enterprise Center together. I am joined by Commissioner Rose, who is to my left, who is our Commissioner of Resources and Economic Development and has been a great leader in this effort. Also with us today is Liz Gray, who joins us both as a member of the governor's staff and as staff at the Business Finance Authority as the staffer for Live Free and Start. And so I'm very grateful for her and to the Business Finance Authority for partnering with us. The governor's office couldn't quite figure out how we'd have a budget to do this all on our own. So the Business Finance Authority was a really appropriate partner. And so we also thought it was important to have both their perspective as well as our perspective in this effort. But I hope people understand that in appointing Liz from those two agency perspectives, this is really a priority for me and for all of the leaders of state government and the Business Finance Authority here. In a minute, I'll ask us all to just go around and introduce ourselves and make sure we all know who's here and what perspective you're all bringing to the table today. In my first 18 months in office, I spent a lot of time with businesses. We have focused a lot on building a stronger workforce. As you all know, that's included making sure that our young people could actually afford to go to college here, or at least we'd stop raising tuition. I'm not sure it's totally affordable yet, but we did freeze tuition. We're lowering tuition at our community colleges, and we reinvested in scholarships. I have a STEM task force that's being led by the chancellor of our community college system right now to look particularly at how we're doing STEM education in K through 12. I've really worked with so many people, including many of you in this room, to make sure that we're partnering with businesses and really looking at our education system to make sure we're developing a 21st century workforce. And then we also included in our budget and in our first year legislative priorities a number of things like doubling the R&D tax credit, providing technical assistance to small businesses, especially around international trade, reinvesting in travel and tourism, especially around marketing, which Jeff's team has done a great job with, and to make sure we improved our business one-stop. And those are some of the initial efforts we've made to make sure that we're modernizing as a state and really doing the things that our business community has told us we really need to do to move into the 21st century economy and lead in it. There's a lot more to do, whether it's energy costs or implementation of healthcare reform. No matter what you think of it, there's a lot of work to do to make the system that we've got work. We've also worked on transportation infrastructure. We got a bipartisan agreement, as you know, to fund our transportation infrastructure improvements, including finally completing the expansion of I-93, which we planned to do 30 years ago, and had we completed it a while ago, it would have been a lot cheaper. But we will be able to do that. And we're working on a number of measures to encourage private investment in the state and help make it easier for businesses here to start and to grow. But the other thing I kept hearing in the first 18 months in office was that, you know, New Hampshire used to be a leader for startups, and while it's still a good place for startups, maybe we've lost a little bit of that startup edge. And why? And so the whole concept behind Live Free and Start, which I established with an executive order, and you know, Liz is staffing, is really to bring together business leaders and entrepreneurs to address concerns raised by the high-tech business community in particular. I want to make sure that we're an attractive place to start business. I also want to make sure that we're an attractive place to stay and to grow a business. We know that we need to modernize business regulations. We know we need to improve the technology that businesses use to interact with the state. Towards that end, I've done another executive order that says by the end of next summer, everybody who has forms, all state agencies that have forms that businesses need to use will have those forms online so that people can actually interact with the state online. And I'm working with the Secretary of State's office. You know, he's got a part of that task too, to do that as well. We know we need to work on making this a better place for investors and to raise capital for investment in startups here in New Hampshire. So those are some of the things that we're trying to address with Live Free and Start. We just want to make sure that there are great opportunities for startups in our state. I want to hear from all of you. You know, the most important thing that I think we've been able to do in the last 18 months, specific issues aside, is really demonstrate to not only each other, I think we all already knew this in the Granite State, but to the rest of the country, that it is really possible for people to come together and solve problems. The citizens of New Hampshire do it every day in their daily lives, and the least they can expect from their elected leaders is that we follow their lead. And while we may have differences of opinion and different ideas about how to do things, at the end of the day, we need to come together, get over the disagreement at some level, and move forward. And then when you do that, you get stronger and stronger. And so I've been really heartened by the fact that we put together a lot of really good bipartisan solutions to a number of our biggest challenges. The good news about an effort to reinvigorate startups is that I don't think there's any dispute about whether it's a good thing to do. I think everybody knows that the future of our state is with the entrepreneurial spirit of our people. And so with that, I'm really excited to learn more from all of you about what you think we need to be thinking about and doing to move our state forward. So with that, what I thought I might do is just ask people to go around the table, introduce yourself, and you know, looking at numbers, keep it pretty short, but what could we do to help startups in the state of New Hampshire? Just a brief, you know, throw out a thought, or if you have a particular question you want us to consider, that's fine too. Make sense? Yeah. Why don't you just say hello?
I'll again, Jeff Rose. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Resources and Economic Development. It's a pleasure to be here and to see the everything that this wonderful facility has to offer. It's really great to see, and really these types of incubators are a critical part of trying to create that entrepreneurial type of environment and spirit. So it's a pleasure to be here with you today and look forward to the conversation.
And welcome, Governor.
Thank you.
On behalf of Grafton County Economic Development. I know you've been here before, and you may get a bang or a thud or two since we're busy fitting up the second floor.
which is
It's
great.
a sound of progress.
That's right, yeah. It's a good thing.
So there's no bodies being dropped, and there's no nothing in anger. So this is our second business incubator, and we cover a large stretch of territory, as you know, throughout Grafton County. And there's certain things that we hear over and over again from companies: access to qualified and a quantity of workers to choose from. I know you've heard that over and over again, no matter what business roundtable you're involved in. Worker attraction and retention is top on everybody's list. I'll also put in a plug that this incubator is best located in a downtown area where a lot of the entrepreneurs can socialize, network, and also get coffee, which is for the 10 o'clock at night crowd, which we've got plenty of them, is important. And so revitalization of our village centers is also something in particular. I know Littleton's been doing a fantastic job at that, and perhaps there's some opportunities to kind of jumpstart that, as well as perhaps some projects, another project up there. So glad to have you here, Governor, and look forward to more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Trent Bogus, and I'm the Dean of the College of Business Administration at Plymouth State University. And the Enterprise Center of Plymouth falls under the auspices of the College of Business Administration. I am also a proud member of the Grafton County Economic Development Council. So I actually have feet in both camps. I am doing the liaison, or sometimes maybe it's ground zero for the relationship between the university and the Grafton County Economic Development Council. We're very happy to see the kind of rapid development that is taking place here. I personally am a strong advocate for the things that create jobs and maintain jobs. And one of the things that I see that I'm very interested in is developing new markets for products made in New Hampshire, particularly markets abroad that we can export to. And I know that our three top trading partners, actually I should say our three top export partners of New Hampshire are in this order: Canada, Mexico, and China. You wouldn't expect that last one, but China is a very important trading partner for New Hampshire. And it's the sort of thing where I'm always interested in trying to figure out if we can find ways to grow those markets. So the businesses that we have here have expanded markets, markets they can expand into.
Thank you.
Welcome, Governor. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Steve.
coming. As you know, I spent most of my previous life in the resort business in Dixville Notch, but I can tell you that for the last 9 years, I've been inspired by Plymouth State University.
Yes.
This is, as I said earlier to Mark this morning, this is an institution that has a powerful effect on the Lakes region in northern New Hampshire. I don't think, in fact, what we provide is a dependable, trusted, committed institutional thread holding the diverse communities and regions and organizations together. Plymouth State is committed to that, and we're deeply engaged. For instance, USNH asked, how many businesses did we assist this last year at PSU? Now, it was not possible for me to get all of them, but I reported on 327 this year that PSU has been involved in assisting to become better at what they do. To play on what Trent just said, you need to think about tourism as an export business, because all that money is coming from somewhere else into New Hampshire being spent, and if we do a good job, they'll go home, they'll earn more money, and they'll come back and spend even more. So it is an export business. And New Hampshire relies greatly on the income that comes from tourists. Just count it up someday and see what proportion of the general revenue comes from people who don't live here. I just stepped down as chair of Stay Work Play. It is an organization that is committed to trying to regain the New Hampshire advantage, at least in a way that we can promote this. It needs further support. I very much appreciate the support you've given in the past. But my real heart and commitment is in investing in early childhood. I believe what the Federal Reserve Bank says, that it's the surest, most dependable, most efficient and effective way to get economic development, stable economic development in the future. And I'm very proud that the Tillotson Trust has made a major investment and continues to do with the help of Plymouth State and other partners. We're going to make Coos County the best place to raise a family in New Hampshire. I know that you support it, but I really think that we deserve a greater statewide presence. And finally, public higher education is the only horse to ride into the future in terms of bringing a real, stable, and prolific economy.
And I've got a whole list of things I could talk about, but the question was, what's missing or what can we do better? I would like to say that when we opened this facility, we're at full capacity of available square footage. We're on our second phase right now, and after that's complete, by the time we're done in around September 1st, we'll have another 4 companies coming into the facility. By September 1st, we will have created 18 jobs. There'll be 9 companies in-house and 1 virtual member. Some of you are prospects around the table, so I, again, won't continue with the propaganda, but it's been wildly successful beyond what I could have realized, and I think that's because of Plymouth State University and Grafton County Economic Development Council. They started this before I got here. It was quite a long effort to do so, but as a result, the community responded greatly by filling the house, if you will. And this is my 21st year in incubation. I have not seen that in my previous places I've been, so this is a first for me, and it's a privilege to be here and work with all the folks around the table. It's interesting, one of the things that didn't come up, part of the reason companies come here is to take advantage of Plymouth State students in the form of internships. We have the Small Business Institute program that Comtus went through. We also have independent studies that we've done. We do grad assistantships. And in fact, 21 interns have come through the Enterprise Center to the companies within it to get that experience. And 5 of those students are now full-time employees of those companies. So we're very proud of that. So I think the resources speak for themselves. And again, I could go on for, this is what I do, so I could go on for 2 hours. But one thing that wasn't mentioned that I think is a big concern, because we are an incubator and accelerator and a community outreach program. So we do talk to folks outside, and as Steve said, we've touched 350 or so companies, is gap funding. So one of the things that hasn't been mentioned, and it happened even today, I talked to a fellow, and they can't get that small loan between maybe an angel group or a venture capital group or a traditional bank loan. They're not ready yet because, as Kelly said, they don't have income yet. And so they're looking to get this, what I call gap funding. It's relatively small amounts, and other states do have state-supported funds that do administer some of those kinds of very high-risk loans and or grants in some cases. And I think that would be great. And I realize the economic and the fiscal crisis that we're in. I understand that, but that's one thing I'd like to see filled is gap funding.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And I'm Sarah Jane Steen, the president of Plymouth State. And I guess I would talk just briefly about 3 things. One wouldn't surprise you at all, and that's the importance of support for public higher education and enabling us to provide affordable access for students also from central and northern New Hampshire who would love to be educated here, live here, and work here, as well as the students from other places and the importance of what they mean for the workforce. The second thing I would say follows on what Michael just said. I think a lot about what the next phase is. We worked hard to think about how this incubator and accelerator was going to work. What was it going to mean? How were we going to build it? The students who were going to help the companies grow, and who in fact were, as some of them are, being hired already by the companies that they have helped to expand. Now, what's the next phase? How can we as a state, how can we as a community, a university, and all of us as partners around the table help them get to that next phase? And I think that next phase is what I think a lot about. And the third thing I think is another one that is significant, and that is healthcare. We're working very hard, and I think you know that, to provide the people who are going to be the workforce for healthcare in central and northern New Hampshire. Because I'm convinced that indirectly, if we're going to have companies grow, they're going to grow in places where they have access to education and healthcare for employees as part of what economic development is. So as Steve talks about education and early childhood education, as some of you were talking about other kinds of education and training, I think those are critical and will be part of that with you. I'd like to think we can also be part of making sure that central and northern New Hampshire communities have the kind of health care they need so that businesses want to be there. And that's going to be important, and there may be times when we'll be looking to you to help us with aspects of that health care.
Sure. Thank you. Well said, everybody. A lot to chew on. I thought maybe, Liz, I don't know if you and Mark want to facilitate more of a conversation, or how we want to proceed from here, because there's a lot, I think, both Commissioner Rose and I are.
Where to
Which
start?
one? Maybe let's
Jennifer's
start.
on the second page.
Yeah.
So excited.
Yeah. Everything from job training to a number of other things. But do you have some comments you'd like to start with, and then?
Sure. Well, I'll just make a couple of brief comments to some of the discussion that we've had so far, and a lot of it had to do with infrastructure, and so I got some notes on that. But we do, within the Department of Resources and Economic Development, we have 4 different divisions. One is economic development. One is travel and tourism, which we heard a little bit about in terms of the importance of travel and tourism. Another is our parks and recreation, and again, there's a lot of opportunities when you start talking about our natural resources here, as well as our forest and lands, and managing a lot of the public lands and forestry. So there's a lot of elements within the division of within the agency of the Department of Resources and Economic Development that are, I think, really important to this region. So to the extent where I can be of assistance, or my team can be of assistance, we're always happy to engage with that. One of the things that I'll just touch on briefly is when you're referencing broadband and how important that is in terms of sort of an equalizer. Technology is really an equalizer when you talk about opportunities to enter into markets and to be able to work where you want to work and play where you want to play. And so I think trying to find ways to continue to grow and push out our internet and our broadband infrastructure in the state is really important. We actually just are coming out with our Telecommunications Advisory Board is coming out with their report for the last fiscal year. And our agency has a director of broadband that works closely with communities and trying to help prepare and move forward and working with the different providers to try to make sure that there is access. We're very fortunate where we are today through some of the efforts through the BTOP program and others that have really helped make sure that we have a good backbone and infrastructure, particularly as it pertains to our colleges and universities throughout the state. But we want to continue to work with communities to try and to do more, because we do recognize that is a really critical component. One of the other elements that I did want to also just briefly reference is, Michael, you kind of referenced it around gap funding. And Liz, please feel free to chime in on this. But the Granite Fund is also another resource that's within the state, within the Business Finance Authority, in partnership with DRED and others, to try to help provide some of that gap funding. And to the extent that I know, talking with Jack Donovan most recently, and Liz, please again correct me, but they're looking for opportunities where they can try to be of assistance, and they do have some resources available to try to help that. and working with the SBDC, Small Business Development Centers, is another means by which I think can be very helpful for small business and entrepreneurs that are looking to try to develop their business plans and their business models, so that when they start to go forward and trying to either get traditional lending or angel investment or other types of financing, they can be a really good resource as well. So I'd encourage you to reach out to the grant fund, the SBDC, and others is a good option. So, and then I guess the last thing I'll just reference is the important role that, and I think we heard it in terms of the commitment to education, and how that really is kind of an incubator for really all levels of our state's economy, and working, whether it's with Plymouth State University, the university system in New Hampshire, the community colleges, but also high schools and even younger. I mean, the earlier we can capture the minds of our youth, the better we're going to all be. To Steve's point earlier, so that's something else where we are always happy to try to talk about trying to bring those partnerships to bear through the governor's leadership. We've spent quite a bit of time with the university, the chancellors of the university system, the community college system, and I have been working very closely together to try to make sure that we are trying to map upstream a little bit in terms of trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our businesses today.
I think I would add, on the job training front, we do have a pretty active job training grant program in the state, so we'd love to talk with you more about what those needs are. And obviously there is also a huge need for what I'd call applied skills, or the trades and crafts still in a economy like ours. That is also something we're trying to attend to. But on the K through 12 space, in addition to investing in or looking hard at STEM education and making sure that we're doing it at a younger point, and that we're really helping middle schoolers not only get hands-on, but also helping them understand what they will need to learn if they want to do X, Y, or Z. If you want to do this when you graduate from high school, you're going to need a certain level of competencies. If you want to go to community college to learn to do something different, you're going to need another level of competencies. If you want to go to a 4-year program, here's what you'll need to be able to do. We're really trying to put together the kind of mapping that not only kids but families need, because a lot of what we're learning is that parents don't understand, for instance, what high-tech or advanced manufacturing career is like these days. So they think it's dirty physical work, and they don't necessarily think their kids should do it. If you spend a lot of time in a high-tech or advanced manufacturing setting, you begin to realize how much manufacturing has changed and how highly dependent on STEM skills and creative skills both together it is. But so we're focused on that too, but we also know that there's still a lot of work to do, not just in STEM, but also in helping young people be ready for post-high school trades, apprenticeships, or then transitioning right into the kind of community college or college space. And we're really trying to make sure that our high school education is competency-based and not just, how many credits did you study of X, Y, or Z, because that doesn't necessarily tell us what we need to do. And we're looking hard at ways to make it easier for young people to earn a first year of college credit in high school, which one helps them accelerate, gets them better prepared, but two, saves some money for higher education, which has become more and more of a real challenge for our young people. But I'd like to stop talking and turn it over to maybe Michael and Liz or Mark to make some observations. Or
well, I will tell you that the whole discussion about high schoolers and entering into the workforce, preparing for them, way to go, because the top 3 high schools, northern high schools in Grafton County, have a high school internship project that has just blown away any of the expectations we had. We partnered with them through WIB funds, or WIA funds. It was the governor's discretionary funds a couple of years ago to kind of jumpstart the project. And this semester we have 67 high school students working in over 40 businesses with, I think we're approaching 60 different competencies within those businesses.
Sure.
So within the last 3 years, 8 of those students have come back and are now working at the business that they actually interned with. And some of them have moved on to college internships in order to maintain the relationship with that company. And those companies were coming to us and saying, it's tough getting perhaps students from Boston area when they graduate from college to come up and settle in a place, a rural area that they're unfamiliar with. But if you can find students that grew up there and that have family there and that are knowledgeable about the business, that's the hook they've got to bring them back in. So anytime you'd like a tour of any of those and to meet some of those students, I know that the folks up there would love that. And if you're looking for positive examples, that's great. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And by the way, Plymouth State University actually came in on this, and we presented to those folks. And now there's the opportunity for perhaps some credits in high school, as well as some scholarship activity that could happen. And these guys moved within months to make that happen. So light speed work on Plymouth State's part.
Thank you.
If I could just jump in, I really appreciated all of your comments and thoughts. A lot of the things that you've talked about today, whether it's access to debt financing or information sharing or just access in general to resources that are available through the state, is a lot of what we heard at the first Live Free and Start Advisory Council meeting, which we had on just July 15th. So Matt, again, as the chair, and then Kevin as a member from the North Country, we'll be bringing these ideas back to them. But I'd like to, if we could go back, maybe just to address the financing issue or the information sharing issue, to kind of jump off of those topics to see whether or not more of you are feeling that those are really some issues that we do need to address as a state. One of the things that we did talk about also was marketing and branding and really telling our story, because there are a lot of great things already going on in our existing incubator network. We've got 5 incubators and multiple locations beyond the 5 there, and we really want to support the existing network, but also, again, expand our reach, and look at other resources and services that are available to the ECP and the rest of the incubator network. So please, we'd love any additional thoughts on how we can.
Well, I just wanted to make a direct comment. What's interesting, pardon me, about the network is that if you join one of the incubators, you have access to all the incubators. So as a member of our incubator here, you could go to Manchester at the Alpha Law, or can go to Dartmouth or wherever in the state and camp out for a while they're conducting business. And so we made that agreement at that level. So we're happy to say that that's quite unique for states to do that.
Sure. Right, and I think that the thing that I always think back to when you think about the concept of this country, which was so entirely revolutionary. First, the notion that ordinary people could run their own government was just considered kind of unattainable. But secondly, what our founders really were onto was this notion that if you honor individual freedom and liberty, you unleash talent and energy, and then, by golly, you got this amazing economy that's leading, and that's really what we've done. But we also need a recommitment to that ideal. Pretty much every generation has to remind itself of this and move forward with it. So I'm intrigued by the notion of what kind of ambassadors could we connect with? You know, how could we, in a strategic way, say, who do we have in every single small town in the state of New Hampshire who could really help connect the dots in that very direct way that we do in the Granite State. People roll up their sleeves and they go talk to their neighbors. And maybe there's a strategic way we can really get at that with the kind of partnership between volunteers and the state that we've always put together. You know?
Governor, I think that really innovative solutions are needed to deal with this endemic, deeply seated problem and challenge that rural communities have in New Hampshire. And I would give as an example something that Plymouth State's involved with in Coos County called the North Country Teacher Certification Program,
Right.
whereby we are perpetually in need of teachers who want to stay in Coos County, and that's a very hard row to hoe,
Yeah.
because if they have a partner or a spouse, that person can't get a job. But there are people in Coos County who are capable of being teachers, and by signing them on, and PSU bringing its expertise and its certification powers to partner with the White Mountain Community College, we are creating teachers from the community every year. In fact, I just learned that one of the teachers that was created in a previous cohort is now a principal of
Yeah,
one
that's
of
great.
the schools there. I mean, that kind of solution is homespun, it's original, it's creative, it works, and it's trusted by the people.
Yeah.
And they understand how this is going to benefit them. I think there are all kinds of opportunities. If we don't try to apply urban solutions
Right.
to rural issues, we can figure out a way to do this.
Yeah. So that gets me to another question, and I'm looking at our banker here, and our local banker here. When you think about one of the questions Liz asked, which is access to capital, financing for entrepreneurs, especially in this part of the state, what kind of challenges are we seeing generally, and are there specific challenges in this part of the state that you think our startups or our entrepreneurs face?
I think because you have the freedom to pick the business that you think you will succeed